this video I'm going to discuss the difference between the forward vertical, the way Anthony DeLonge just taught it to Harrison Ford, and the overhand flick. They are very similar, but there are some very different details about them, and I think they give quite different results. First of all, the overhand flick usually begins with the whip in front, and you drag it and you throw it up over your shoulder. But the forward vertical starts with the whip behind, and this is actually, I think, a more difficult throw. It's also a lot more specific, and it's much better for wraps. I think there's lots of instruction on the overhand flick. Adam Winrich does an amazing job of explaining it. Again, you start with the whip in front, you drag it up, you bring it up behind your head, it holds there for a split second, and you throw it forward. I don't believe the overhand flick is as much of a finesse crack as the forward vertical. Part of the reason for that is that for the overhand flick, you get a real downward slash. And I don't think it's as effective for a wrap. I do a lot of wrist wraps with this crack here because it pushes through very straight, whereas the overhand flick chops. So let's see if we can break this down. First of all, the overhand flick begins with the rollout. If you've ever learned the rollout from Mike Murphy or any other whip instructor, that's how you learn the overhand, the forward vertical. You just roll the whip forward, roll it back, roll it forward, roll it back. Anthony DeLonge suggests you get down on your knees and practice the rollout like this. You should not try to start with attempting to crack the whip. Just roll the whip. Forward, backward, forward. Eventually, you'll notice a little light crack the more that you get comfortable with that. You want to communicate with the entire length of the whip. Anthony talks a lot about drag, push, roll. Drag, push, roll. And you get up on your feet. Drag, push, roll. Most people have a problem because they want to throw it. They want to throw it over their arm like this. They want to just get the tip out there. You've got to push the entire length of the whip, starting with the handle. It brushes almost, not quite brushes, but it seems to almost want to brush right by your chest as you bring your arm through, and it's very tight. You're a little bit tight in here, and that's to keep everything very low and making it more of a push than a throw. You're pushing it through, like I said, almost through a tunnel. You definitely don't want the whip to go any higher than your head. Again, that's why it's very different from the overhand flick, which goes way over your head. So this is very much a low, tight, straight through push. I like to make sure that my front foot, my right foot, is actually almost pigeon-toed, not quite to my left, but just a tad, so that when I finish, I'm very straight. I don't want to be putting my body this way and throwing across. Then the whip has a tendency to have to curve. Remember, I'm pushing this straight through a tunnel. So, start with the whip behind. Practice rolling it forward, rolling it back. Rolling it forward, rolling it back. This is not a gypsy crack. This is not an overhand flick. This is rolling it forward, rolling it back. Pretty soon, pushing it straight, trying to make sure that it's not at an angle like this, That's a good crack, but that's an angled forward vertical. That's a diagonal forward vertical. You want this to be absolutely straight vertical. Again, you'll keep it pretty straight if you keep it fairly tight to your chest. And practice just making the whip go straight over the top. It's very difficult to make a loop when you're doing this crack, because you form a loop when you do a cattleman's crack. You're not going to get a real tight loop with this crack. It's just a big C curve. But you do want to emulate the loop as much as you possibly can.
Trying to be